Welcome to our club, My Life, My Business. Our event is Wish I Was Here, and it's still all about an engaged life so that you can fully enjoy life. So, currently, we're still basically continuing with our series on unconventional wisdom for a joyful life. And today, we're going to tackle Principle 30. And Principle 30 says that truth exists regardless of belief or consensus. Now, it's an interesting principle. This one, not that obvious, but I guess it's basically how we unpack it for our practical application. So, a preamble to this is: if everyone believed that the world was flat, would it be flat? Now, I know that if you really go and Google this, you can find the Flat Earth Society that actually exists. And people who subscribe to the Flat Earth Society believe that the Earth is flat, incredibly so. And they have a mantra. When I just looked into this is not in depth research, whatever the case might be, because my mind can't conceive why people will believe that the Earth is flat. But they do. So their mantra is you cannot trust visual evidence because when NASA publishes photos of the Earth, we can all kind of see it is a globe, right? It's a sphere. Yet, um, people who believe in the flat Earth science, in inverted commas, would say, well, you cannot believe what your eyes see because NASA is evil and the tool of the Illuminati and so forth and so forth. And, so it's kind of amazing. It's like, all right, you walk outside and you can see the sun is shining, and the Flat Earth Society people will tell you, well, don't believe it. You know, actually, it's like some sort of an aberration. And so it's interesting that within this society, there are two groups of people that would believe in a disk version of the Earth, where the poles are somewhere in the center and everything around it is Earth cap. Um, and then there are those who believe in an infinite plate version or plane version. Sorry, it's an infinite plane version, meaning that you can see the horizon extending to infinity in a way. And when science, if you want to use a scientific way of addressing their belief system, like what do you do about gravity? We are pulled towards the Earth's center by the gravitational forces. And they would say, no, 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 actually, it's the reverse. The plate of the Earth, not the sphere of the Earth, actually attracts people by the same force to itself. So actually, it's upwards rather than downwards. Those that believe that the Earth cannot be a sphere says the reason for that is how can the Earth be a sphere? Because how does water then stay in the surface? Impossible. It's a plate. It must stay on top and not underneath. Anyway, it's an example that kind of feeds into this, where regardless of what you believe or what your consensus would be, truth exists. That's the principle. And the issue would be then is, well, what is this truth then? How do you apply this truth that if even if it is absolute truth, we can all see it with our eyes, we are told we mustn't believe what we see. I mean, what is the standard then? How do we then gauge? Is everything debatable? Um, and so on. So the question is, wise people question everything. This is just the some of the things that are being said around this principle. So, and what this means is that, for example, it's if you take it now from the take it away from the flat Earth society, that's quite a challenging viewpoint. But things that we believe about ourselves. So this the joy that we experience in how we journey on our way as far as life is concerned, as far as our careers or business is concerned, is what is it that we believe about ourselves? All right. Now, it's interesting that we have to ask ourselves this question: is my belief that I'm holding, is it limiting me in any way? Is it true, or is it the truth? And I'd like to, expand that a little further, maybe with a little bit of interaction and so forth. And um, this these beliefs that we hold when it comes to ourselves, that become the joy robbers, takes away the fun, takes away of takes away the whole sense of anticipation when we wake up in the morning, bounding out of bed. We are now going to be energized by what it is we're going to be doing, because we understand that our life has meaning, our actions have meaning, and we can't wait. I don't know how many of you actually wake up like that. So whether we go into characteristics of what society tells us, what we need to believe about ourselves. you know Interestingly enough, it is, do we see ourselves as um, you know successful? And society will tell us that if we are successful when we live in the right type of house, in the right type of area, we look a certain way. Oh, don't let me start on the topic of hair. Oh my goodness, me. The hair must be flowing and it must be long. I'm astounded by the beauty industry, actually, by what it is one can do to yourself to feel better, look better, and for whatever the motivation is, whether it's hair, whether it's eyelashes, whether it's lipstick, whether it's foundation, whether you look a certain way, whether it's about skin tone. What does society say is acceptable, and do you believe it as the truth? And how does it limit you in any way if you cannot afford to do these kinds of things? Like if we talk about hair, for instance, you go buy a hair piece, and these things are quite pricey if they come from the right places. um, you know, and does it look natural? Whether we do a weave, whether we do whatever it takes, to make the hair long and flowing and so forth. And people explain this to me as like, well, I feel better because I look better. I want to flip that on its head and say, feel better, you will look better. Let the inner beauty radiate outwards. But anyway, we're talking about limiting beliefs. So whatever society, people, school teachers, friends, family have placed on you to make you feel less than, all right? And you begin to believe. Now, when you grow up as kids in one particular household, just the fact that the teasing can stay with you, can stay with adults for a long time. Whether it's hairline, whether it's weight, whether it's love handles, feet size, toe size, fingers, lips, cheekbones, doesn't matter. The older you get, you would think that you shrug it off, but it stays there as something limiting your view of yourself, and believing that you are less than. And there are other things when you make assumptions. It's like, okay, people treat me in a certain way because I don't drive the right car. If you're in sales and you've just started your own business, and you arrive with the customer, or the prospective customer, the potential customer, and you arrive there in an all beaten up um, Beetle, VW Beetle, and you park around 10 blocks away and walk to the client because you feel that the client is going to judge your ability to deliver to promise. Because in the last experience you had, somebody actually walked you to your car, and when they saw what you drove, the whole potential sale fell through. Now you believe it's all about how you look and your status and the symbol attached to it. Now, obviously, there's a range of ways to look at this, but now your belief says, well, I don't look successful, so I will not be successful because of what it is I drive. As an example, or what I wear. I don't wear the right. I wear a suit, but it's a suit I bought from Pep's, and I don't think Pep supplies suits. Maybe Woolworth suits. Oh, and it's not a of Italian or French design. You know, a silk and so forth, and therefore I don't look the part, and then by extension, I won't act the part. The other one is just literally interpretations. How sometimes um, we believe that of who we are, people treat us differently, right? Um, I don't sound a certain way. I speak English with an accent, whatever that accent is, and therefore, because I spoke it with that accent, people don't accept me into their inner circle. People look down upon me. I am for whatever the reason may be, whatever you're attaching your belief to, right? Now, then there's another one, which is the death knell to us all, is what I want to call the gremlin. And this gremlin is really our inner critic that tells us we are not good enough. Now, the moment we start believing it, we act accordingly. We don't step out of our comfort zones. And we don't venture out. We don't want to stand in front of crowds, etc., because the inner critic tells us, wow, you not even wow, or shame, shame, you're not good enough. And so the point of using the limiting beliefs as a point of departure here is it a fact that you're not good enough? Is it a fact that you are less than? Is the fact that one human being is more precious than you are, just by the mere fact of what you drive, what your status is in society, what your status is in society, what kind of work you are doing, how many children you have or children you don't have, how well your kids perform at school or don't perform. You know, it's all kinds of things like that that we need to sit back and ask ourselves, okay, what is the truth? And you know, talking about who we are as people, I just like to point this out, is that believing in a creator is a point of departure here for me. And also believing that the creator is intelligent and created people fearfully, wonderfully, perfectly. Immediately somebody is listening to this and there are no such thing as people that are perfect either in their behavior. People are blemished and nothing is aligned, so forth and so forth, whatever the case might be, right? But if you believe that you've been perfectly put together and what for a purpose, and being obedient to that purpose and fulfilling it, how can you imagine what a joyful journey of life you would have, because everything aligns to this purpose? And we've spoken about this in many different ways. It is just, what is it that you believe? If you believe you are wonderfully, fearfully put together for a purpose and you step into that purpose, why should you compare yourself to anyone else? Because being less than anyone else because of what society is telling you, what your experiences are telling you, and even what your inner critic is telling you, is not the truth. You are special. And I want to say that's the truth. So, interestingly, in terms of consciousness, self awareness, truth is who we really are, while true is who we think we are. I want to repeat that. Truth is who we really are, while true is who we think we are. So, I just want to stop there for a moment. I thought I was going to stop much earlier. Went on a bit of a rant, but I'm passionate about this stuff. So tell me, and I'm directing this question to Shanaz. Shanaz, I mean, was there anything that triggered for you in terms of this principle? Truth exists regardless of belief or consensus.
Hi, Jox. I think that I think you there was a few things you said that resonated with me. The idea around. So I always say that everybody has their own truth. So it's based on that I that idea that you spoke about. We are truth. So
Mm,
each one is uniquely different,
mhm,
and so that is your own truth. And I think that we when I work with people, and then I will always try to encourage them to speak their truth, because it is so different, and that is true for them. Just because they experience grief and loss in a different way to me does not mean that it's not true for them.
mm,
So that's what I do, but I want to stop at the idea of the limiting beliefs. I
mhm,
think that that's what I work with so much, and what I have to work on myself all the time. And I think that we what I want to add also is that it's sort of, I find that we struggle sometimes to identify those limiting beliefs, and people sometimes need, because it becomes so part of who you are, that you don't realize that it's not necessarily true. It's not necessarily the truth about you.
yes.
And so I find that a lot of my work is, both on myself and when I work with others, is to try and unpack, when did that suddenly become true for you.
Mm.
And you'll find that it's happened over a number of years, sort of. Yeah.
Sure. So I would be interested to know, just on a sort of, in terms of your work, what are the practical things you advise? Then is that's a very powerful question, around when did that become true for you? Because I think the journey to that place um, is all sort of, I don't know. I'm going to use my imagination. It's relative. Life around us sets standards for us, and we look at those standards and we compare. There's this comparison that happens, and therefore, I think the phrase "if only I was like that, I would be there. I would be more than." So I got to behave in a certain way, or and so forth. But that at least sounds aspirational. But when we get into the space of what we're believing about ourselves, and that experience, if it repeats itself enough times, it becomes fact. And then it's like, okay, but this is my lot in life. So my question is to people who are going to be listening to this podcast is, where does one start to unravel this? First and foremost, that question of when did this become true for you? Because it tests the truth of the matter. I gather, if you ask that question and somebody sits back and says, well, okay, I don't remember, but okay, I suddenly realize that this is limiting me in a way that I'm not going to achieve my goals. What practically does one then begin to do, Shanaz?
I would usually start and ask the people, what do they believe about themselves? So I'll get a list of things, and sometimes, whether it's people are coming to me for a particular reason, or it's just in a conversation, then so what so I'll get them to, so if we're talking around a situation, and I'm recalling a situation where, a parent was telling me that, her son is ADHD, and I want you must hear the story also. Her son's ADHD, and he was even diagnosed, and he's on ADHD medication. And what we then started talking about is, when was he diagnosed? We started talking about the history thereof. And what has since transpired is that, so I, for example, how I've studied broader, and I know that ADHD is, you can be diagnosed with it, but there are other viewpoints, multiple viewpoints about ADHD, and this parent was choosing the most prominent one, which is the medical one, and I was explaining to her that there are multiple views. Eventually, the mom had her son looked at again at with another psychologist, and actually discovered that he doesn't have ADHD. So for
Wow.
5 years, this child has been, diagnosed and been on Ritalin and everything, and so it is, you earlier on you spoke about questioning, um, you know, um, your beliefs, and I think it is always important to question your own beliefs, things that you accept on a day-to-day basis. And what I often tell people how to get started is write down your thoughts. So you spoke about the inner critic. We also
Mm.
have an inner dialogue. So it's about becoming aware of your thoughts. And
Mm.
I'll sometimes ask them to do that for a day or 2 days and come back and share that with me. And you'll actually be surprised at what you start to realize, what you believe about yourself. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, excellent. Now, you see, that's so practical, meaning, thoughts, while it's still sort of uh, running your mind, it's you're running the narrative, it's all up there, and to take those thoughts, write them down, concretize in your eyes, see what you've written down, then gives you the opportunity to evaluate, isn't it? I mean, in the context of this principle, it just says, and I mean, it's a statement, and actually, I'm going to use this statement as my mantra a little bit more consciously and forcefully, to, as I lead myself in this way, is, do not believe anything about yourself that is limiting you in any way. So once you've written down that list, it's actually to do the winnowing exercise, to separate the wheat from the chaff. The chaff is the things that you're believing about yourselves as limiting. It stops you from doing. It stops you from being courageous. It actually leads you into a place of living your life with fear, trepidation. You don't enjoy life. You wake up, oh, it's morning. Oh, you're going to see those people again. Oh, you're going to be doing this again. You're going to be exposed. You're going to be failing again. Is to separate those things out and look at the things that remain from, out of that list, and look at them and say, but these things are the ones that boosts me in my purpose, who boosts me in my truth. It actually begins to form part and parcel of who I really am. And, I don't know if there's also a part of who I really am, and I didn't even touch on it. That self acceptance part. Suddenly occurs to, I don't know if I'm going to now turn this thing completely on its head, but maybe that's one of the barriers that we have just generally, is that we cannot accept ourselves for who we are. I mean, I made some big comments around examples of how we look and our hair, and I think the deeper underlying thing is a lack of self acceptance. I don't accept who I am. Now, whatever brings you to that place, whether it's the past with all its regret, you made some decisions, they turned out very badly, now you can't forgive yourself, and as a result, you can't accept yourself, or living in a society that tells you so many different things. Because, I say living in a society these days, we've got so much on tap at a click of a button. We can Google anything, we can watch anything. And if we are not careful in terms of what it is we're feeding ourselves, that also becomes part and parcel. And it's so innocuous, it's so subtle. We start to believe some strange things. I must say, if I think about it these days, I always used to say, but Hollywood is very, very dangerous in a way, because without realizing it, you can just be um, programmed in a way to start accepting things that are not acceptable because it's there in your face. And what I'm talking about is, how about violence? We become so immune, so numb to violence. It's become more acceptable. Uh, and then Hollywood would tell us what perfect looks like, isn't it? And it's quite remarkable. And so self-acceptance. Now I know feeding into that is a complexity of things, Shanaz, and just I'm not even going to try and delve into those things. However, from the exercise, listing all those things in terms of what you see in yourself, what you believe about yourself, your truth, who you think you are as opposed to who you really are, coming back to who you really are, being the truth, is accepting who you really are. I think there's nothing more beautiful to me, and I use those words to anybody who can be comfortable in their own skin. And when I say that, I'm not talking about wrinkle free, blemish free, that kind of thing. I mean, this is my skin and I'm comfortable in it. I accept myself. When I look at myself rather with gratitude, look at myself and say, wow, I've been wonderfully put together. And so, you are celebrating who you really are when you are secure in who you are. When you can stand up in front of others and appreciate who they really are, rather than be them or compete with them. And depending on what kind of personality you have, you either, because you don't accept yourself, you don't accept others and you treat them in a certain way. Or conversely, you don't accept yourself and therefore you remove yourself from society. You become a loner because you don't fit in, you're a misfit, all these kinds of things. That becomes your truth. It's that whole adage of, in the land of giants, I am a mere locust. Ooh, you know, and in the end, what is the truth? And when it comes to us personally, it is accepting who we really are and then living a life that is aligned to that, authentically so, unashamedly so, doing what you need to be doing. Look, I'm very much a purpose type of person, so your life needs to mean something. But being who you really are, understanding your purpose and living it 100% every day is not a fantasy. I think it is achievable and it's reasonable to expect to do so every day. So, there's a quote by a guy by the name of Miguel de Cervantes that says, facts are the enemy of truth. And it's interesting, maybe as a bit of a teaser, what does that mean? And I just want to expand that because I know we've run out of time. That facts are the enemy of personal truths, meaning whatever we believe, it becomes a self fulfilling prophecy that we will find the facts to support what we believe. And if those beliefs are limiting, we will find the facts to support them. And yeah, and I'm going to end it right there. And Shanaz, do you have some last words for us, some pearls of wisdom?
Hi, I just wanted to say that yes, and I think that meaning and purpose is so vital to it. And one of the things that I'm struggling with, but when I but thinking about my purpose then just grounds me in sort of my battle to change my shape and become, lose weight and become fitter. And then it just dawned on me, but I was not placed on this earth just to be thin. Or I was not placed on this earth just to lose weight. And then you know what? And then it's like it just all my issues like just disintegrates. So when that thing that you're struggling with, you were not just placed on that on the earth for that. There's so much more to us. So
Oh,
yeah.
Wonderful. I'm not going to say anything further. That's excellent. Thank you, Shanaz. I can then have the next week just thinking about that and being inspired by that. Thank you, Shanaz. Thank you, Renee. Thank you, the rest of you that have been listening. It's just been awesome. And until next week, when we tackle another foundational truth. All the best,
Thank
everyone.
you,
Bye for
Jacques.
now.
I have been inspired. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.